Well, here we are once again in another episode and a podcast with another inspirational and totally amazing person. Now, this person, I got to know him only a year ago in the world of sports. Somehow we crossed roads in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia during one of my visits, and I'd like to welcome to this podcast uh, Coach Michael Moore. How are you, Michael?
Thank you, and thank you for the invite. I'm in good spirits today, good form, and I'm happy to be here speaking with you.
Well, I know that you're in a place where it's a couple of degrees cooler than where I am right now. So you're back home, if I'm right, correct?
That's correct. I'm back in Dublin at the moment, and if I pointed the camera out, there's plenty of rain and plenty of wind. I'd prefer to be in your climate, but it's good to be back in the city. It's good to be back home.
Well, it's good to have you. I know you're a busy man, and I'm really grateful for you making time for to come to the podcast and share with us and the listeners and viewers your experience. Now, Michael, I don't know where to start, but your experience is so vast, and your career has been so amazing. Touching on youth and foundation phase coaching years ago, being involved in as a coach and a head coach for youth. Is a very big learning, I believe, within the coaching environment and world. You are also a business manager. You have projects ongoing, which you're going to tell us more about it in a minute. And wow, the extensive years you spent working with the Football Association of Ireland, and that's really something which raised the eyebrow. And today you're heading the academy. Business, obviously, at the academy world within Juventus, Saudi Arabia, in Riyadh. What a journey! What a journey! Tell us more. I mean, who is Coach Michael?
Okay. Where do we start now? You're making me feel old, So, just a brief outline of my journey in coaching. Well, before that, obviously, I played football as a young child and into my teenage years. I soon realised I wasn't going to be the next David Beckham, so I had to rethink my plan. So that's when, in the year 2000, I moved from playing football into becoming a coach. Just after I had trials with Aston Villa and Coventry, that didn't work out, so I really had to rethink where I was going to be, and I wanted to stay in football. So in the year 2000, I went to college and started studying sports management. And that's where I started to really see the benefits of college, because I was beginning to network with people, in sport. And I was getting my qualifications at the same time. And then I was getting my name, and I was getting to be seen around Dublin. So after getting my qualifications, I connected with a lot of people early in the Football Association of Ireland and start doing subcontract work with them, assisting them on all the programs from community development to player development to scouting for the national team. And then that's when I decided to set up my own football business, where I would manage and coach football programs with all different levels of football, from foundation phase to youth, to working with going into prisons, having had contracts in prisons, coaching them youths that have found difficult times and found themselves in bad situations, and also working with people with disabilities as well. So my experience goes from all levels of skills and experience, and the best years for me becoming a coach were these 6 years, and working with all different abilities and disabilities. From that, I then went into Shelbourne Football Club, which is a professional League of Ireland club. And in around this time, they were very strong. They were getting into Champions League qualifications, playing Deportivo La Coruna. So I was head coach for the under-16s, 18s, and scouting for the 21s. And so then not long after that, because I built a good partnership with the Football Association of Ireland, we came to an agreement in 2006. They thought it'd be best for me to come in with them because everything that I was doing, they were doing. So we just joined forces. And with that, again, I remained in the capital of Dublin, and I was working for the FEI doing coach education, club development, and within the National Academy, which is identifying, assessing players, and I'm working one of our centre of excellence with 80 players. And a lot of them players have pushed on now to get good careers in football. And as of now I'm over with Juventus. I'm an academy manager in Riyadh. So there's, as you can see, there was a lot of different experiences and different abilities and different aspects of the game, and it's brought me to different countries, to America, to Europe, to nearly everywhere in the country and that. So, you have to always look back at your experience in order to move forward. You've done things and then they'll fit in the future,
You said many things which resonate.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go back to that in a while. One thing which you just mentioned, which for me plays a major role in anyone's moving forward, is development. So you have an immense experience from grassroots foundation all the way to
Correct, yeah.
Develop beyond development and at the association level. This game and sports in general is a fast-changing environment. Things which were valid 10 years ago might not be, and not today, and for sure we're going to change another 10 years. Mm-hmm. What advice or what best practice has been has you used? What guidelines in life have you had to ensure that you always continuously focus on your own development as a manager? In this case, as a sports manager, but also for perhaps we have players or young athletes listening to you today, and if they're looking up towards managers that they're going to learn from, what do you think is essential? What are the essential factors for personal development, and where do they come? Where do they stand as a priority?
Okay.
Is this something that goes back to you as a person, or is something that organizations have to have as a responsibility?
I think as a player, as an athlete, you have to have a good mentality. You have to. And what's a good mentality? There's strengths and weaknesses to mentality. So it's a big statement to say to have a good mentality. So I think first an athlete needs to be open to becoming better. And that doesn't just mean being on the pitch. They have to be open to become better off the pitch. And that may mean building their personality, working on the strengths in that and the weakness of their personality. First and foremost, for any athlete or a coach or a manager, we're a person first. So the first thing for me is I want to be able to communicate to them and they need to be able to communicate to me. So communication, how they communicate, they need to really always have that in the back of their mind to be able to communicate. So communication breaks down, they won't be able to show off any of their skills, So that's the first thing I look at as for an athlete. What are they like as a person? And they look at me, what am I like as a person? Because I could have all the knowledge in the world, but if they don't like me, they're never going to hear that knowledge. And I could be, and that's basically it. They need to have a good way of communicating and interacting with people. And I've broken it into what I call, when I'm working with a team or working with staff or working on a project, is the pursuit of excellence. How do we get team excellence from me, from my staff, and from my players? And I've broken that into 3 pillars that I focus on. And the 3 pillars are, first, I need to create a learning environment. That's number 1. Second, there needs to be harmony in the team. There needs to be harmony in the project. So we're all fighting and there's a dislike and it's not going to work. And the third pillar is performance accountability, where I have measures to evaluate and to make sure people are accountable on their performance. I found if we have them three pillars, that points us in the direction of success. Doesn't guarantee it, but it will put us in front of success where we need to try and get. And then you have to decide, well, what is success? Is it an individual being successful? Is it a team being successful? Is it the staff, or is it the project? So for my pursuit of excellence, it's them three pillars: learning environment, harmony, and performance accountability. And then that leads into seven critical elements to achieve that. Any questions on that?
Yeah, it's a very. I mean, the three pillars are very clear. And what makes me wonder is, how do you deal with it when you come into an environment which you haven't created and which you have been inherited? So you come into an environment, and where do you start? So you start when you have issues and you want to go and implement.
Okay, well, where do I start? If I'm handed over a new project, the first thing, and it's back to the first question you asked, well, what does an athlete or a leader have to do? The very first thing I do is get to know people. It's forget about the project, forget about the idea, the concept, or whatever team we are. Is I need to get to know them and what type of person they are and what qualities do they have. Are they committed? Are they positive people? Are they negative people? So then when I get to know people, through basically sitting down and listening to them and talking to them, observing them as a person, just getting to know them. Then after observing them, then I would formalize my plan. And my framework for starting a project is I focus on seven critical elements. The first one being commitment. Second one being focus, connection. Third, confidence. Fourth, positive images. 5, mental readiness. 6, distraction control. And 7, ongoing learning. So, and that takes time, them 7 elements take time. And I would always start with commitment first. And so I work with a team. I'm after getting to know them. So I know the players. They know me. And the environment now is there's talking, there's communication. So that's the first thing that I look to get. So then the first step is to focus in on commitment to our project. So if I put it in the context of a team, we would have team meetings around the word commitment. But before we commit, we have to identify, well, what are we committing to? Commitment is not just saying, well, we're going to do this for 6 weeks. There's more to it. There has to be a purpose behind the commitment, which you'll be well aware of. And that's the drive for any player or athlete or person. So if we identify the reason for commitment, well, then we're starting goal setting already within that. Personal goal setting, team goal setting, So when we identify what we want to commit to, we give that commitment through conversation. And then the coaches and the staff go away to set out the requirements to achieve and excel to reach that commitment. So there's more work to it, than just committing. And then a big part for me in the commitment phase is persistence. We're going to be faced with obstacles, that are internal or external. We have to identify and then analyze them and see, well, is it us, or is it them, or is it the opposition, or is it an outside influence? So commitment for me is identifying what we're committing to, setting out the requirements, and then persistence in that. And within that framework, I would have vision reminders because we've identified our vision. So in order to commit and recommit and near enough refocus, we would have a calendar where we would have meetings bringing back to the meeting number 1 on commitment. So just reminders on commitment. Does that make sense? Does it?
It does. I mean, I think for anyone who has enjoyed the success, commitment and persistency or consistency is an element that cannot be substituted. Well, hard work is important, but however, if there is no, the commitment has to be there every day from the players, from the managers, and I think that's what most people perhaps don't reach their goals because their commitment levels perhaps are highs and lows. And my question is, how do you keep a commitment level at high? Is it, and having worked with the different levels of athletes as you have, is it a natural given gift? Is it or is it something they develop, and it's something that young athletes can listen to and say, okay, commitment is something that I can actually work on.
Yeah, well, to keep commitment high. Yeah, exactly. To keep commitment high, I ensure within the commitment plan that there has to be a real purpose to what they're doing. So I'm giving a personal purpose to each player, that drives them to remain committed. They have to be getting something out of it. For me to do like a transaction of commitment, they're giving me something. I need to give them something. And then as a young athlete and as a person, we all want a reward of some sort. So purpose, reward, and success. That's how we maintain and keep commitment. Now, there could be issues that we cannot control, and then we have to look deeper into that. But to answer your question, how do you keep the high levels of commitment? Purpose. There has to be a purpose and an end goal to the commitment. If they're just training to train, commitment will go. If they're training to compete, well, then they're competing for something, so train or commitment should stay. If they're training to win, well, then their commitment levels are higher now. They're now a winning team. They're not just competing, but competing and winning, there's the purpose, and then as becoming an individual, become better.
And I can't agree more with you when you say purpose. I think everything in life starts with purpose, and
of course,
seeing kids not knowing sometimes why they're playing or why they are actually put in a position of pursuing an athletic career is where perhaps the starting error is. What it's I think one of the most important jobs for a coach or an athletic or athletics expert is to identify if that person is on the right purpose, and also see if they can come to the core purpose in life of that of that specific athlete. I'm going to say Shelbourne Football Club.
Shelbourne, that's it. Yes.
Any memories that you want to share with us out of your years of coaching at that club?
Yeah, well, memories both as a player, as a supporter, and as a coach. So I'm deeply connected to Shelbourne Football Club, But as a coach, it was a step into elite football. My purpose now was to identify and develop players for under 16 and under 18, hopefully to go to under 21. So the commitment, I knew straight away. So that's the first element for me in my journey, commitment. I was told from the very start, Michael, identify for the under 16s, develop and push them into the under 18s. You'll be taking over the under 18s. So therefore you're developing for yourself to take over. So they knew to put a big goal and a big objective for me to make sure that I worked hard and remained focused. So, and we were reaching very deep into Dublin football, into the football grassroots networks, so we were meeting all different levels of players. So I had to identify players that had what we call a rough diamond. They had bits of potential, but there was a lot more, or some that didn't show potential as on the field, but their personality and their qualities showed they could become a good player because they had drive and determination. So it was a great learning experience for me in Shelbourne, being around the under 20s, 21s, and being close to the first team training. Because what was good about the academy there, they all trained side by side. The senior team, 21s, 18s, 16s. So all the players could look around and see each other, and it was like a beehive of energy, you know. So they're the two things that I got out of it, was energy and just understanding players, you know, at such a crucial age, 16s and 18s, you know.
Michael, through life, you know, we always set some
Yeah.
examples, right? And also we become examples, hopefully, for others. I'm sure you are, for many people who follow your leadership at the academy level today. And who have you had as inspiration? You know, if I would say the three people who played a role in your life that inspired you to the man you are today, who would those
be? As a coach,
as a coach, as a man, as a member of the global society.
Okay, well, my inspiration, obviously, I will have to say my parents are going to be first, my mother and father. You know, I will never look past them first. You know, why I'm here today is because of them, from them being nice people and help me and always support me, to push me on, and telling me to be ambitious and always dream, you know, and try and chase that dream, you know. And then within Irish football, there was a friend of mine. His name was John Bradley. He was known in Irish football as Bower Bradley. I only became friends with him probably around 12 years ago, and he was in his 70s, you know. And I met him at a meeting, and we just clicked. And the amount of knowledge that I learned from him, just from how he communicated with people, how he listened to people, and then the knowledge that he had about football, you know. And he's actually one responsible for finding Damien Duff and Robbie Keane. And he would have cycling out, seen them play, cycled out to their houses, knocked on the door, and got them into his local club, you know. Wow. So this was a guy that could spot potential at a very young age, and then he was able to nurture it and push it on. And then from a professional perspective, Alex Ferguson, I would always, what I liked about Alex was how he controlled how he always managed to, when players became too big, he knew how to handle them without it becoming a problem to Manchester United. You know, Alex Ferguson, he always kept control of everything, you know, and then he always used a word called the romance of Manchester United. So he loved Manchester United, you know, and he seen that there was heritage and tradition. And I like that. I like reflecting back on history. I like history as a subject anyway, not in football. So with Alex Ferguson, it was control, and he had the romance and the connection to his club. And no matter what project I get involved in, I want to have them connections. You know, I want to be part of the control, but I want to love the project, because if there's love in the project, then people care. And he cared about his position and the club.
Well, yeah, who cannot resonate with that? And definitely a man and a leader who many watched, and many try to learn from, and many have learned. Now, talking about history, what got you into managing? We know that you've in football and you go back a long time, but what was the interesting, fun element of getting into the role of managing other people? It's not an easy job.
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, I do remember vaguely when I was young. I remember going to the Ireland international matches, and the match would be on, and I'd sometimes, now looking back, remember looking down on the sideline and watching the staff. And I thought nothing of it then, and then I started playing. So what got me into management, and coaching. Well, there's more to this story than just actually loving the game. So when I stopped playing football, me and my missus Jen, we had our daughter at 18 years of age. So now my life changed for the better, and basically I wanted to stay in football, but then I wouldn't have the time to commit to it, and I wasn't going to give commitment to something that I couldn't become professional. But then Jen said to me, or she spotted the course in Dublin and says, would you like to become a coach? And I says, I don't know about that. Do you want to become a manager? I don't know about. And she left the book on the table, and I picked up the book, read the book, and says, I think I might like that. So I went to the course, done an interview, and it all started then. I then noticed I started to lead in a good way, and lead for the reason to help people succeed in a group, because it's a good feeling when a team wins something. That's a good feeling. I really think it's not about me leading to say, well, I done it. It's when you look around and everyone feels, well, we're after doing great here. Let's do better again. So how I got into it really would be because of my wife. That's the truth of it. She said to me, there's a course. Would you be interested? And I says, okay. And that was it. And I haven't looked back. And I built friends in that university. I've worked with them ever since, so that's the reality of it. There was no major sort of nothing fancy. It was just my wife said, you love football, I'm going to support you in it. Have a look at that. I would never have found in that course, so I wouldn't have researched it. She found it for me, and this is it.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I think there's a lot of people right now who will listen and watch you and feel a bit envious or jealous, because there's like, that support is essential. It's a make or break, and I think that brings the value of the family and also how we face things together. So really, really beautiful.
Yeah, well, any project that I would do, I always bring it back to the values of a family. I treat people the way I want to be treated and treat my family. And if people disrespect that, well, then you deal with that, and you can deal with it harshly, but it depends on the magnitude of the situation. But for me, a good, strong family working as a team, that's a good thing. And it's hard to find that, because sometimes there's people that break the trust of the family within the coaching staff, and that's a problem. That's back to Alex Ferguson. If you break it down, if you're not in and you disconnect, you're gone. So that's the root of the side to it.
You mentioned another important word, which is values, besides purpose. Yeah. So you're touching a lot on the core of what life coaching is all about as well, and also coaching, as a matter of fact. Now, when you say values, there's nothing more important to live. And we started the podcast by saying people first. You use the word, with people in front of the forefront of anything. And I think that's where a lot of organizations and businesses fail or fail to deliver in the long term, because the human aspect or attention to people first is not there. Now, has there ever been so far an experience in your life as a manager that you were not able to help someone, that you really, really tried to, for reasons that, anything? Has there been any such situation that when you look back with your experience, you would say, you still say I could have done more, or not?
Whether I could have done more, I don't know, but there is a situation, there is an experience that I can recall, was that there was a player that I was working with at under 17s and under 18s, and this guy had serious potential, absolutely serious potential to become maybe one of Ireland's best players at the time, but his focus and his commitment was not what it needed to be. And no matter how many times I spoke to him, he would miss training, or he even missed the cup final. He was after getting us into it and being one of the main players. Wow. And And I don't want to be going into his background, but there was other issues there, and they were out of my control. But maybe I could have been more persistent and been kept at him every day, and got a little bit not closer to him, but maybe that's all I could have done. I do think I tried everything that I could, but looking back, well, maybe I needed to be more like a father figure and just tell him, look, you need to come to training now, and that's the end. I'll see you then. So maybe the role had to change to maybe a little bit more being like a parent because of background issues. That's probably what he needed. So, and this guy, I still speak to him, but I haven't told him that. I've never told him that you could have been one of the best players in Ireland at the time, because how heartbreaking would that be? I wouldn't tell him, even though it would probably make him feel good, but then after the feeling of having that feeling of feeling good, but then he's thinking, well, now I'm not doing it. So I'd never tell him how good he could have been, because it's not fair.
The reason I asked you this question is because the role of a coach is beyond imagination, and unless you do the job and you're in that position, it's very difficult to explain it, because the thousands and thousands and millions of kids come across different coaches along, and there's so much that happens between the grassroots until someone makes it, that requires such a big commitment, right? Commitment from both sides. Now, how much of that is actually a manager's role? And the reason I asked the question is that thinking about what we maybe crossed as an experience in life, we could have done more or less. And thinking of the personal development of a coach and what they have to have in the luggage at certain levels. And now, as a head of an academy, when you look at your coaches and you look at how you equip them, what is the responsibility to start and end? Because, as a matter of fact, it is a mutual relationship. So where do we say that's enough, and maybe somewhere we have to say no, we can't let go, we cannot give up. But in a world where it's all surrounded by commercialism, where you have a time of delivery, where there's so many in the queue that you need to pay attention to, and where failure is not accepted to reach excellence over and over again. And if somebody does not wake up, as we sometimes call it, and respond, what is the responsibility of the coach? Is there even a limit, or is it?
Well, for me, there is a limit, and where does it start and where does it finish? So it starts that if a player, an athlete, he's there to be helped and for support. So if there's an issue, you ask him, do you need help? If he says yes, well, then it starts. So then there's a continuous framework to help him. Now, if he isn't getting any better, and whatever the situation is, well, then how does it finish? You may have to ask him, you may discuss, well, why isn't it working? And you may come to the reason why it's not working. Then you ask the question, do you want more help? Because if it's external and it's outside your project, you then have to ask, well, do you want us to help you more? If he says yes, the help continues. But if he says no, then the responsibility finishes. And it's back to just communication. Do you want help? Yes. And then it's not getting any better. And we identify that it's now something outside it. It's his social media, or it's family life, or it's alcohol, or something. The first thing you need to ask without doing anything, do you want us to help you? We want to help you. And he'll either say yes or no. And if he says no, well, then it's cut. But then you may have to analyze that. So it can't be just a coach. You're bringing in other people then. If the answer is no, and we all know he needs help, then there's other people, responsibilities that have to come in, So you have to be I think, where does it stop? You have to know if the person wants help first. If they don't want help, well, then it's a bigger problem, you know. And then there's so many. It depends on the circumstances, you know, basically. So it's a good question. You know, that could be a podcast alone. You know?
I think so. Yeah, I think we'll have to invite you back and talk about only that question itself and elaborate.
Yeah.
And again, there's so many elements, as you mentioned. There's so many critical elements that are needed to bring not only an individual but a full team into the next level.
I think a focus is very critical, and there's a big difference between focus and commitment. You know, because we've committed to our project. Now we have to be focused in order to achieve it. And what I always strive for is that I want my staff and my players to be on autopilot. They're now on autopilot, and they're reactive and they're proactive without me instructing it, you know. So they're in first, second, third gear, you know, and they're in a situation. If it's a player, if you give an example, the focus that I would ask for a player, and I get this by talking to him, I want him to be on the pitch, fully engaged in what's ahead of him. So he's not hearing anyone around him, but he can hear the coach's voice. So he's trained to hear one voice and carry on. And you want your players to be released from all irrelevant distractions on the pitch, you know. But if they get distracted, well, then there's distraction control methods that we need to get refocused. But for the moment, I want the players to be on autopilot and release on the pitch and just hone in on the priorities of what they've been asked to do. And I think so, if you can get a synchronized focus connection, so if you can get your whole team in that zone, well, then you're on to a very good thing. And you look at Atletico Madrid, how they defend. They're focused, they're connected, they're synchronized. It's not just, excuse me, it's not just 1-2 players doing a good defensive job. It's the whole team. That's Diego Simeone has got synchronized focus connection. And that isn't just from nothing. He's worked on that. Because concentration is the biggest thing when you're defending, because you're not on the ball, so you have to concentrate on what's happening around you. So focus connection, you know, is so important for me. You know, when I'm working with players, they need to be focused on their job.
And there's no doubt. I think the moment you lose focus is where the results go down and performance takes a dip. And performance sometimes goes down when elements within our life do not work out for us, and we bring that on the pitch or in the training. And with that, I'm going into another direction with the mental coaching. So one area which a lot of top athletes have the pleasure or the luxury of using are mental coaches. Now, do you think there is a need for understanding mental coaching or coaching the human being inside the athlete and not only the athlete? In the world of football, in this case, in academies, in clubs, and there's a taboo, or there's still a very, very low awareness in terms of what that can do for an athlete or for a child. Can you tell us what you think about it? If you have a
I certainly believe that there is it needs to be in the game, you know, and mental readiness, you know, as a coach, and or if you have a specialist in the group that can speak to the players on this, that really special. Mental readiness. You have, as a coach, have to help your players or your athlete follow a path that brings out the best in them. But how do they get that? That's where we need to help them. They help in their own mind, but you need to identify that path that brings the best out in an individual, and they bring it. So there is a role for sports psychology in football, you know, mental health and well-being as well, you know, It's not all about performance, mental performance, to achieve, but in order to build the person, you know. So I definitely believe, yeah, mental readiness. We need specialists to work on confidence. Like, confidence is not just about me and you going out for a drink and we're in a pair of white jeans and sunglasses and we're looking great, and it's not about that. There's more to confidence, So if I was to ask you, what is confidence in an athlete or a person? Well, say in the context of you have a bunch of players, what confidence would you want them to have?
Yeah, I would say literally to be very, very fine with where they are at that moment. For me, confidence is that you are feeling great about yourself, really with simplicity. That you can be the best player in the world, and you can have the best car in the world and the best account. But being in harmony and in balance with what you are doing every day, without feeling, because confidence can be something that can also be fed from outside.
Correct. Yeah.
To cover the inside, as you just said, right? It just covers up for whatever is missing inside. Maybe a broken relationship, maybe something that you haven't dealt with, and maybe something that you haven't fixed, and you're moving forward without fixing your internal emotions and internal damage. And you want to show the world everything is fine, so that you have a very high confidence level. But then it shows in the game. I think whether you like it or not is going to play out on the pitch, on the week in, week out.
Yeah, and for me, when I ask, I don't say it to the players, but when I'm speaking to my staff, that I want confidence. I want us to build the confidence of all the players. So the two words that I use in these meetings is confidence that I want to build is belief and trust. Not who has the best hairstyle, who's the nicest sunglasses, and who's looking sharp and who's not. It's belief and trust. So I tell my coaches, we have to show belief in individuals, show belief in the team and the group, and get them to trust each other. Confidence in trusting each other, and then confidence in trusting you. So now when it comes to big decisions, on the training ground or during a match or at a critical moment, the choices that are being made by management, players and the group are confident and trust and believe. And that's the triangle: confidence, trust and belief. And how do you get that? An example would be I asked the players to recall a success and a feeling that this team has given you. And therefore they're recalling it in their mind, and now you're building belief because they're looking at each other during them visualizations, and they're starting to believe in each other. He won't let you down. Nobody's ever let anyone down in this team. So you're speaking, and it comes back to again the communication. But now we're using visualization to get confidence of trust and belief. Excuse me. Sometimes I ask the players to write down what the word confidence means. Get them to define the word confidence, trust, and belief. Because people's definition of the word confidence, they may have a different understanding to what I want, what you want, and what the team wants.
You hit the nail on its head with when you said the confidence with the team, towards the team, and also to receive that respect and trust. I think one of the most important things in a group, there's a lot of important things for a group to come together, but one thing which will definitely identify a successful group is somewhat what you had explained, and it's the vulnerability. It's the safe environment that a group can provide to its members to be at their best or at their worst at times, without getting judged, without getting singled out, without getting isolated, without getting pointed finger at. So definitely when you build that, the trust level is high. confidence goes high with that, and then you get the results you want. So I think that's a great insight in terms of what really can build and give towards a solid confidence within an organization. Now,
it's just trust and belief.
Trust and belief, yeah. And you know what? Trust and belief, really two strong words I would like to remember from this podcast. Trust and belief. Believe in yourself, believe in others, and also
that's it, yeah.
Trust. And there's a book called The Speed of Trust, and it's by Kobe. And I think trust is in itself a step which takes a long time to build, and a very short time to lose, because you can,
big time, yeah,
and that's what you see. Some teams break up, and things start to happen when the leader and the members lose trust, simply. And belief goes hand in hand with that. Now, tough one now. Okay, we're almost there.
Yeah.
I got two or three questions, and one of them is a bit gonna put you on the spot in terms of the word failure. And I personally love the word failure because I'm continuous failing daily on many things, and I learn a couple of things and move on. But I think failing for me myself has always been, in my brought up, was a negative thing, and only in the later stage of my life I understood that that's the best thing that can happen to a person, fail. So tell us about one of your biggest failures as a coach or as a professional member of this sports world, and what was the outcome? What did you come get out of it? So that's really what I want to know, but we still want to know what you feel that.
Okay, so if I can just sort of speak about the word failure first. For you said failure was a bad thing.
When I grew up, yes.
When you grew up, for me, I use failure means if I'm failing at something, it means I'm competing at something that I want. So it's a positive for me because I'm competing. If I was not failing in what I wanted, it means I'm not in the environment. I'm not in the network of where I want to be. So if I'm failing and I'm getting a pushback, it means I'm being recognized. I'm in the network of competing, so I use it as a positive. So that failure means that I'm competing to get something that I want. So then if you don't get it, well, then how do you manage that feeling? That's the key thing. You either, but what I do is I accept the feeling of not getting what I want. And some people will get angry when they don't get what they want. Some people will get sad. Some people won't care. So what do I get? Well, I would get a little bit sad, but then I get more determined. And then I start identifying, well, why did I fail? Was it me or was it other people? Did the people get in my way on purpose to stop it? Or was it a failure on just merit? I wasn't supposed to get it. So I'll analyze failure, and what big failure moments that jump out for me in my career. Maybe in certain circles of opportunity that I didn't go for it as much as I should. Maybe I was too humble and not selling myself in a situation where I should have. So I've learned from that failure, so that would be for me a failure that can happen regular. That how do you put yourself across to certain opportunities, so that would be for me. It's another great question, and it could be another podcast that we have to do. is discuss failure, because people's perspective of an understanding of failure is completely different, and that for me is maybe failing to not sell myself. That's not what I'm saying. Is that I'm very humble. And you know, from being in
Yes.
this professional game, sometimes that goes out the window, and some people just do a little bit extra, but that has to be you. That's not me. You know, that's not my personality. So then, is it a failure? You know, are you changing your personality to be someone else? You know, I'm happy who I am, so I'm not going to do what he does to be him. You know, because that person's failure will come at a later stage. Yeah.
Perfectly makes sense. You know, and we talked about purpose, we talked about values, we talked about you know, philosophy, right? And also the fact that um, one person's failure doesn't have to necessarily be another person's, you know, definition of failure. However, I love the way you put it, and this tells me a lot about how branding oneself is important, right? And how we perhaps in a younger ages we don't get that a lot, and you know, and recognition, self-recognition. I think the best recognition in life is self-love. That's one thing we don't perhaps from, you know, up to later stage we understand that, you know, we don't want to be selfish, but I think self-interest and selfishness is two different things, and self-interest is very important in life.
Yeah, of course.
And knowing you in this period of time, yes, humble, I think, is one word which you will find in the dictionaries when you look for Michael Moore. That's for sure. But knowledge and expertise is another one. Now, last question before we let you go, and for this time, I would say, what would Michael Moore, if you were in my shoes, right? If you were just right now in my shoes, what would you ask Michael Moore that I didn't? One question that I didn't ask you, that you would ask yourself.
Pretty good question. I'd ask, what is the driving force behind you as a person? I'd want to know that. So if I'm doing this, if you're on a podcast of mine, the question I'll be asking you, and I'm asking myself now, is what is the driving force, the real driving force behind you as a person? And to me, the answer to myself, it's simple. It's family, and it's the easy one that I wouldn't go to. But every decision I make nearly is about my family. Will my decisions better my family? That's what it's about. That's as simple as that. Now, that's not decisions in the dressing room or the changing room. I'm talking about big, or just life outside the dressing room. So the question is, what is the driving force? Is the love of my family and being there and supporting them, and basically being around them. You know, being there for them when they want to speak to me, because I've had opportunities where I could have managing, you know, a very good sort of levels, but the commitment levels, one level was you'd be out of the country for 240 days a year. I wasn't doing that. Other people done it, and their life is different now. They don't know their family. So the driving force behind me, so the question I've asked myself, what is it? What drives you? What is the core of you? And it's family. That's it. That's what I get paid to do, is to mind my family. You know, no, I don't get paid to coach. I'm getting paid that I can get money to offer and support my family. That's the overarching element of Michael Moore.
If I was listening to you right now, I'm looking for someone to run my business, I would probably want to have Michael Moore beside my as a great, powerful force. Thanks, Michael, for sharing that. I think that family stands above everything, and I think throughout the podcast, what we heard and talked about is people first. And once you put that in the forefront of your attention, I think everything else, somehow falls into place with the right expertise and experience. But I can't say that this, this is enough. We're gonna probably have to come back and discuss other, topics that popped up during this podcast in details in the next couple of weeks and months. And
for sure,
I really want to thank you for your knowledge, experience shared here. Now, if the viewers and listeners want to connect with you, how do they do that? So how do people get in touch with you if they want to further?
Okay, well, people they can connect with me on LinkedIn. Just search Michael Moore and it should come up. And also on Instagram and Twitter, and it's Michael 10 Moore.
So
okay,
Michael,
Michael 10 Moore on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm happy enough to help people if I can. It's good to help people. It gives you a good feeling when you're helping and they help you. So I'm open for people to connect because connection is good. And can I just say it's an honor being asked and invited to do this podcast with yourself. You've become a good friend from meeting you in Riyadh, and when we had a good day of football, and I'm looking forward to having more conversations on and off the podcast. So and your knowledge and your experience, I'm learning off that, and that's given me drive and energy, and that's why another podcast is people being around energy. You need to be around energy.
Take a note of that, and I'll promise you I will deliver, because I've taken 3 notes now, and those are going to be 3 topics. I'm grateful to hear these words, and likewise I have the same respect for you. And I also want to say to the listeners and viewers that if you want to know how Michael Moore can score a header, you just have to go and find the goal Caniggia scored on Walter Zenga. I was in the goal, and obviously that's how we became even stronger friends when you went up for the header and I completely missed it. And that was a beautiful goal scored for your academy versus ours. So, Michael, I'd like to thank you again. This is Coach Pedari in partnership with ivycoaches, bringing you this podcast with the one and only Coach Michael Moore. Have a fantastic day in Dublin, and I really, really look forward to connecting with you soon again.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.